Good. Rabbi Sai, welcome back to Perek Shavi of Yerushalmi Peah Daf. We are Halacha Hey. So we're bringing now, this is roughly page Samach Gimel, okay? So we're bringing now arguments about Peres Ravoi, that's the grapes or the fruit that grows usually in the vineyard in the fourth year. One Machlokes talks about Peret and Oilolus, whether, remember, the Oilolus were the clusters that weren't formed correctly. The Peret was sort of the single unripe grapes. So Kerem Ravoi, which is your produce in the vineyard in the fourth year, Beis Shammai say if you want to redeem it on money, you don't have to add a fifth onto it. And Ein Lo Biur, and you have no obligation to be Mavai to get rid of it when there's the Biur Maestros, which is of course in the fourth year. Now incidentally, there's actually an argument if Ravoi is only in a vineyard or other trees as well. Right? If you hold it applies with other trees, it's called Neta Ravoi. Okay? But that's the side point. But what we said, so Karen Ravoi says no need of adding a fifth, and also there's no chiyuv to remove the fruit in Biur Maestros. Beis Hillel say Yeshlai. Yes, both of these obligations apply. Okay, to add a fifth and to do Biur. Now, what other did? Beis Shammai Omrim Yeshlai Peret. Beis Shammai say that Karen Ravoi has the din of Peret and Yeshlai Olalas. So all these other gleanings, the extras that go to the poor, just like Peres Chulin, you have these things. You have it with Karen Ravoi as well. The Aniyim and the poor people who get it take it to Yerushalmi to eat it there, or they redeem it and take the money to Yerushalmi. Okay, the reason why Beis Hillel they say what they do, there's Gzer Shama between Ravoi and Masechet. Right, Masechet says Masa Oitz Kodesh Hashem, and Ravoi as well, the produce in the fourth year Kol period Kodesh. So they have Gzer Shava. So they say just like Masechet, you have to add a fifth, and there's a biur. So Kerem Ravoi has the same thing. Okay. By the way, adding a fifth is only when you're paid your own Masechet. Right? If you're paid someone else's, you don't have to add the fifth. Okay. Beis Hillel say you can take the whole cuttings of the vineyards to the press there. You don't have to leave the Peret and the Oilolus for the poor, because Peres Ravoi, this Keren Ravoi, is got Kedushas Ravoi. It's like Hashem's money, really. It's Mom and Gavaya. It's not really yours, and therefore it's patur from Matanas Aniyim. So he wants to say you don't have to leave the Peret and the Oilolus of this Keren Ravoi. Right? They hold like Rameh, that Masechet is considered like Mom and Gavaya, but you have a Rishus to eat in Yerushalmi. Okay, we've got Gzer Shava, so they learn Peres Ravoi. Yes, it's Mom and Gavaya. It's not really yours. So it's part of from the Matanas Aniyim. Okay, let's see the Gemara on this. Tadi, we've learned the Tosefta. Rabbi Omer. Nayara Beis Shammai. Where did Beis Shammai say you're part of from the Chaimesh and the Biur? Ella, where is the Shvius? When the fourth year is also in the Shemitah year. So the fourth year of the planting is the Shemitah year. If it's the other years of the cycle, then the Beis Shammai also agree that there is a din, you've got to have a fifth, and there is a biur applying as well. So the only exemption is when it's in the Shemitah year. Now, according to this Tana, Beis Shammai hold so they learned the whole idea from Masechet, and they hold we should compare them completely. Now, Kamada Tema, just like we say, Ein Masechet b'Shvius, no Masechet in Shvius, everything is Hefka, right? You're possible from all Maestros. So so similarly, Ein Netra Ravoi b'Shvius. So the whole Chiyuvim of being Paiderit, adding a fifth, Biur, doesn't apply during Shemitah, the whole thing's Hefka. Well, Me'asa, if that's the case, Al Yehi like Kedusha. It should have no Kedusha at all during Shemitah. You should eat it where you like, even outside Yerushalmi. Just like Masechet has got no Kedusha during Shemitah, the same thing should apply. Why did Beis Shammai say that there's no Chaimesh, there's no Biur, but it's mashma the other Ravoi is applying? So the Gemara answers that only like the din of the fifth and Biur, that's what they learn from Masechet. In that way, that Masechet doesn't apply in Shemitah. But Kedushasa, the idea of the sanctity of it, that you have to eat in Yerushalmi, Me'elav Lamdu, that's learned from Ravoi itself, from its own source it has. It says, Kodesh Hilulim, Harehu Kodesh, it's treated as if it's holy. You praise Hashem on it, which is like Bikurim. And just like the first fruits of Bikurim, you can't eat them outside Yerushalmi. So also you cannot eat Kerem Ravoi outside Yerushalmi. So whatever year it is, you can't eat it outside Yerushalmi. And since we've learned it from Bikurim, even in the Shemitah year, right, there is mitzvahs Bikurim even in the Shemitah year. Although everything's hefka, it should be potter from Bikurim, but there is a mitzvah with the first fruit that budded in the 6th year and got cut in the Shemitah year, that they're not hefka, right? So that's what we're talking about here. And although he says here, it's mashma, there is properly a din Bikurim in the 7th year. Rashi al Torah seems to say this. Peah Shvius is hefka, but the time when it grew, it was still in the rishus of the owners. That's basically if you hold that Peah Shvius is not hefka on its own right, it's a mitzvah to be mafkir it after it's grown. So it could be it grew, okay? So it could be. Something there. So it could be it started growing. Thank you. At the time when it started growing, the owner was already chayiv in bikurim before it became the hefka stage. Okay, let's carry on. Now, if netar or kerem ravoi of shmita should be permitted for an einen, of course, is someone between the patira and the burial, right? Now, he's not allowed to eat masasheni. So just like an einen can't eat masasheni, so we should say the other dinim apply. Our Mishnah is mashma, the din of the 5th applies. The biur that was potter, but other dinei ravoi, it seems it is chal even with shmita. So the Gemara answers the Mekoy for Ravoi for an Eiden is actually learned from elsewhere. It's not learned from Masasheni. Tani, we've learned Kodesh, Magid, Shahu, Asal Einen. We have a pasuk which we're using from the actual pasuk of Kerem Ravoi, that Kerem Ravoi is like Kodshim, and an Einen can't eat it. So even without Masasheni, which doesn't apply during Shemitah, but the Kerem Ravoi, the Issur of Einen still applies. Right? It's not learned from Masasheni, and the Issur applies even during the Shemitah year. Now the Gemara comes to what we said. Beis Shammai learned Kedushas Ravoi from Bikurim. So now if Beis Shammai actually learned Kimud Ravoi from Bikurim, now we could learn Biur and from Bikurim. Well, let's learn everything from Bikurim. Even during Shemitah, you should have to do Biur on your Kerem Ravoi, just like Bikurim. And yet Beis Shammai parted you from Shemitah from Biur. Why don't learn it from Bikurim? There it's Chai Biur. You have to remove it. So the Gemara answers, we can't learn Bir Ravai from Bikurim. Begin to Rav Shimon. They hold like Rav Shimon. Hapoita min abiyur. He says, no, Bikurim, you don't have to get rid of it. So the only Mekoy for Bir is Master Sheni, and it's got a din like Master Sheni that does not apply in Shemitah, because it seems they hold like Rav Shimon. Now the Gemara comes back to the idea that according to Beis Shammai, so din Ravai shouldn't apply during Shemitah if it's learned from Master Sheni. Okay? Now it says in Tosefta, Beis Shammai agree, we don't redeem Ravoi if it's connected to the ground, even during Shemitah. We can't be paid at that. And that's one of these dinim that's learned from Maser Sheni. So based on that, if the Issur to redeem Ravoi, which is still attached to the ground, is only learned from Maser Sheni, so v'yipada, we should be able to redeem Ravoi in Shemitah while it's still growing, even while it's connected to the ground, because that does not apply with Maser Sheni during Shemitah, so it shouldn't apply with the Ravoi either, right? Why should you not be able to redeem it during Shemitah if it's learned from Maser Sheni? And it's a very good question, but we have no answer. It sounds like it's Exer Shavah to Maser Sheni. Other Rishonim learn it's only Drabonon Din. We don't know how can you be paid at something when it's still growing? How do you give a value to it? How do you work out a value to it? You say you don't know the weight of it or anything. So that's why maybe you can't be paid it while it's still attached to the ground, you see? All right. Tani, we've learnt. Now, Beis Shammai only parted from a Chomesh and a Biur during the Shemitah year. Now, there is another opinion. Rav Shimon Gamliel, he said, Echad Shvius, Echad Shar Shnei Shavua. Any of the 7 years. Beis Shammai Omrim, Beis Shammai say, Ein lo Chomesh ve'ein lo Biur. Kerem Ravai, you never have to add a 5th, and there's no din Biur any of the 7 years, according to this opinion. Now, what is that? And let's see why. Adate da'ahen tanaya. According to this Tana, this Yerushalmi Gamliel, Lo lamdu na Beis Shammai only learned they did netar avoy min Masechet kol ikar. They learned the din of netar avoy from Masechet at all. Basically, they're not. There's no source. They didn't learn at all from Masechet. Masechet you have to add a fifth. Masechet you have to remove. But according to this opinion, we didn't learn Kem Ravai from it at all. Well, if that's the case, Me'ata, if that's the case, you didn't learn anything from Masechet, Al Yehi like Kedusha. It should have no holiness at all, according to Beis Shammai. You can eat it where you like. But our Mishnah says there's only an argument about Chomesh and Biur. Other dinim do apply. They didn't argue on everything. They didn't say you can eat it where you like. So the Gemara answers, Kedushasai Me'elav. The holiness of Kem Ravai comes from itself, not from elsewhere, not from Masechet. Kedushasai Me'elav Lamdu. They learn from its own source. It says Kodesh Hilulim. Harehu Kodesh is holy. Shekohen Olav Halal. It's like Halal. It's like Bikurim, and therefore it's holy. Now, if you're telling me Beis Shammai didn't learn Ravai from Masechet, well, if that's the case, we can have the same question we asked before. Well, then an Einen should be able to eat it. The whole prohibition for an Einen only comes because Masechet an Einen can't eat. If the Isur of Chilas Ravai for Einen is learned from Masechet, if according to Beis Shammai you're telling me now we don't learn from Masechet, then there's no reason to forbid an Einen, we're eating Ravai. But the Mishnah is mashma that the whole argument was about Chomesh, but other dinim Ravai, it does apply. The Isur Einen does apply. So the Gemara answers that the source for Ravai for an Einen is actually learned from elsewhere. Tani, we learned in the Brisa, Kodesh Hilulim, Magid Shu Asur La'einen. That tells me that Peres Ravai, Kem Ravai, the produce of the vine, vineyard in the fourth year, is forbidden for an Einen, that just like Kodshim. Okay? Now, we're going to come back to what we said, the Beis Shammai might have learned the holiness from Bikurim. Now, if they actually hold that you can learn Ravai from Bikurim, we could have learned Biur from Bikurim as well. Biur. Then just like Bikurim, we said you have to get rid of it. Why don't you have to get rid of Ravai as well? Why did Beis Shammai say there's no din Biur on that? So the answers, Beis Shammai.
It's very different Girsa.
Oh, right, okay. Beis Shammai, so what, is the Girsa not the same at all?
No, we go to Rav Zira, Boy, coming to Ravo.
Oh, well, I'm coming to that soon. Yeah. I'm coming to that soon, okay. So there's a few extra lines in the Girsa, okay. So the Gemara answers, Beis Shammai can't learn Ravai from Bikurim, begin to Rav Shimon Paita B'Biur, because Rav Shimon holds there's no such thing as Biur with Bikurim. Okay, fair enough. So we have all these different opinions. Is there Biur? Do we learn it from Bikurim? Do we learn it from Masechet? Do we not learn it from Masechet? Do we learn it a bit from Masechet, but not for everything? That's what these opinions have been discussing. Now, if you're going to tell me Beis Shammai didn't learn their din from Masechet, now the Tosefta says, Beis Shammai agree, you can't redeem Ravai when it's still connected to the ground. Now, based on that, well, that's all very well, but according to Beis Shammai, we should allow you to redeem it because the Isur to be paida b'mechuba is learned from Masechet. If you're telling me we don't learn from Masechet, then why can't you redeem it when it's connected to the ground? So a very good question, and there is no answer. Okay, back to our Girsa that you have there. Rav Zira boy kur Ravo. Rav Zira asked in front of Ravo, Minayin shulton pidyon. How do we know that it means pidyon? That means you could be mechalel on money. If you want to eat it outside Yerushalmi, you have to redeem it. Now the din, the source of chilul, is learned from Masechet. If you're telling me now, according to Beis Shammai, we don't learn Ravai from Masechet, how do you know you need to redeem Keren Ravai if you want to have it outside Yerushalmi? So the Gemara answers, it says Kodesh Hilulim. It could have said Kodesh Chilulim. Now, Kodesh, it means the reference of being mechalelit. Now it says Hilulim. Now it's a hey. It's not a hes. And a hes and a hey are very different letters. But even so, Lomis Manin Rabbanon, the Chachamim did not refrain from sometimes interchanging Bein Halev and Leches for the sake of droshes. So the letters are similar in their reading. I don't know how a hey and a het are different, similar, I do not know. But nevertheless, the idea that they are interchangeable, so we're learning it's holy, but it's chilulim. So Keren Ravai, you want to have it in Yerushalayim, otherwise you have to redeem it, take the money to Yerushalayim. Tani Ravai Banagri, Kuribla, Rabbi Shmuel, the Brisa of Rabbi Shmuel, in the view of Beis Shammai, is said as far as Masechet. It says, Im Gal Yigal Ish, Mim Masrei, Chamishisa Yosef Olav. So this passage tells you, when you redeem Masechet, you have to add a fifth. Now the Torah used the word alav, right? It's on him. On him, he has to add a fifth when he redeems it. Parat leneta ravai she'ein chayav ben olav chomesh. To exclude kerem ravai or the other produce from the other trees, if you hold of that, the other opinions, then you're not chayav to redeem. Even the owner does not have to add a fifth. And from here we learn Beis Shammai to pater the extra fifth. Ravai, right? You don't have to pay the extra fifth when you redeem it. Now that's all very well. That's in Beis Shammai. Let's look at the view of Beis Hillel. B'chaza v'tana. Then Revival learns another brayso of Yerushalmi, Kumah, in front of Rabbi. It says, Im Goel Yigal, double wording. Shtei Goel, I said, there's two types of redemptions which the pasuk is talking about. Achas the Masechet Sheni, but Achas the Neta Ravai. So one is Masechet Sheni and one is the other produce of the fourth year. They both need adding a fifth. So this is where Beis Hillel learns that you do have to add a fifth. When you redeem your Kerem Ravai, you do have to add a fifth. Right. Now we're going to bring a Mishnah and explain Rebbe's view in Beis Shammai. Talmud Taninan, we've learned in Trumas. Rabbi Yehuda said, Ein lenachri kerem ravai. So now if a guy has a vineyard, there's no din of kerem ravai. But Chachamim Rabbim Yeshlai. Chachamim said there is a din kerem ravai. So it's a nachri's vineyard, okay? Our Rabbi Lazar, Kilim Asis, this is where you learn it. Ein kerem ravai besuria kol ikar. There's no kerem ravai in Syria. Syria, of course, was the area which was conquered by Dovid HaMelech, right? But not proper Eretz Yisrael. So these things you have to add. First of all, the Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim was in Syria, not in Eretz Yisrael proper. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, all the fruit in Syria, actually all the fruit is potter from Syria. Not just Paris, not just the Goyisha vineyard, all the fruit is potter in Syria. The Mishnah says an argument about a Goyisha vineyard to tell you that according to Chachamim, the guy's fruit is chayav in Syria. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, everything is potter in Syria. So the Gemara explains, where did Rabbi Yehuda learn his din? That there's no din ravai in Syria at all. Rabbi Ibi Arba Kumir of Zira, he said from Zira Shem Rabbi Lazar, Asiyad Rabbi Yehuda, this din of Rabbi Yehuda, that there's no kerem ravai in Syria, fits in Beis Shammai, by Beis Shammai, V'adata de Rebbe, and according to the way Rebbe understood it. So Kamada Beis Shammai Amri, just like they said, the whole source was in Masechet Sheni. That's where we learned it from. And we should equate them completely. Now, Kamada Tema Ein Masechet Sheni B'Shvius, you told me during Shemitah year, there's no Masechet Sheni. So Dichba says similarly, Ein Neta Ravai B'Shvius, so also Kerem Ravai, or Neta Ravai, which is the same idea. Again, not Chayav a fifth, you know, din Biur during Shemitah, just like Masechet Sheni, no such thing in Shemitah. Kain Rabbi Yehuda. So also Yehuda said, that Netarvai was learned from Masechet Sheni, and Yehuda says, yes, we learn one from the other, they're both the same. So Kamada Tema, just like we say, En Masechet Sheni but Surya, there's no Masechet Sheni in Surya either, so you told me there's nothing in Shemitah, there's nothing in Surya. So just like he said that, so also there's no Netarvai in Surya either. So he wants to say that there's nothing. Right, just each one follows the other. So what do we say? There's no Masechet Sheni in Shemitah, so Neta Ravai doesn't need a fifth to be Paiderit, or Biur in Shemitah. And just like Yehuda says, the whole idea comes from Masechet Sheni, and just like no Masechet Sheni in Syria, that area above Eretz Yisrael, so also Neta Ravai doesn't apply in Syria. Now, Amalei, Rav Zira said to Bibi. No, he says, no, they're not really saying the same thing here, these two opinions. You're saying, well, Beis Shammai and Rabbi Yehuda, Beis Shammai, they're all the same. He says, they're not. He says, Chamim ma'ama. Look and see what Beis Shammai said, and you'll see, you can't say Rabbi Yehuda holds like Beis Shammai. Lo yama, when did Beis Shammai say Ella? They said that Ravai in Shemitah, during the Shemitah year, they said, Ein la chomesh, you don't have to redeem it by adding a fifth. Ve'ein la biur, you don't have to get rid of it. Shah kol hadvarim, all the other dinim, apply. Yeshlai. They apply even during Shemitah. You'll have to take it to Yerushalmi, whatever it is. If you're saying Rabbi Yehuda's din is based on the view of Beis Shammai, he should have said, Chomesh and Biur don't apply in Syria. But he said, there's no Kedushas Ravai at all in Syria. Nothing applies. It must be that the Pshat in Rabbi Yehuda is very different. And this is where you have to explain it. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Ein lenachri kerem Ravai b'Syria. Rabbi Yehuda says, look, a guy's vineyard in Syria, does not have a din ravai, because the guy's ownership removes the ravai status. But a Jewish person's fruit, Rabbi Yehuda would agree, that does apply in Syria. So not like we said before, according to Peah Daf, there's nothing in Surya at all. He says, no, we're not going that far. Peah Daf doesn't hold like Beis Shammai completely, no. Basically, what's he saying? Ein la nochri kerem revoi b'Surya. There's no kerem revoi with the guy's vineyard, and that's as far as it goes. Back to the view of Rabbi and Beis Shammai. Shmuel bar Abba asked, Beis Shammai Omrim, it's a lot of the same phrases back and forward here. Beis Shammai Omrim, lo lamdu neter revoi ela b'masa sheni. That neter revoi was learned from masa sheni. Kilmada tema a masa sheni b'shvis. During the Shemitah, there's no masa sheni. So similarly, a neter revoi, kerem revoi doesn't apply b'shvis during the Shemitah year. Now, if that's the case, we could say, now year 3 and year 6 of the 7-year cycle, is there masa sheni? Any offers? No. Why not? There's masa oni in year 3 and year 6. So if there's no masa sheni year 3 and year 6, maybe maybe there's no neter revoi either in year 3 and year 6. Oh, Rabbi Yossi says there's a big difference between year 3, year 6 and Shemitah. He says Shlishis, 3 and 6. You're right, there's no Masa Sheni that year, but Yesh Bahen Masa Ani. There is Masa Ani, which is instead of it. And it's as if Masa Sheni applies, therefore the Din Revoi applies. Whereas Shavis Ein Ba Masa Kalika. There is no Chiyav Masa at all. Right? There's nothing in its way instead of Masa Sheni. Therefore, no Din Revoi will apply because that's learned from Masa Sheni. There's nothing in year 7. There's absolutely nothing. Okay. Who can have some breathing space? Right, that's it. Right, what have we got here? Rabbi Yehuda's Din. There's no Din Neter Revoi in Surya. Okay? Now, Rabbi Bibi said the reason is we learn Revoi from Masa Sheni. So it's like Masa Sheni. There's no Din of it in Surya. Now, Chayfa, who was an Amoira, he asked the following. Rabbi Yehuda said, Lai Landa Neter Revoi and a Masa Sheni. The whole source of Revoi was from Masa Sheni. So if that's the case, Kamada Tema Ein Masa Sheni B'Surya. You told me there's no Masa Sheni in Surya. So similarly, Dichbase Ein Neter Revoi B'Surya. Revoi also shouldn't apply in Surya. But according to that, Dichbase. Now, why do we not say therefore? Now, with a carbon taida, you have to bring 40 loaves, correct? 40 loaves, yeah? And you give a truma to Hashem. Talking about the Kohenim, right? You have to give 4 to the Kohenim, right? And the Chachamim learn Gzer Shava between this truma to trumas maser. He says, Lai lamdu trumas taida, elam trumas maser. The idea of trumas taida, the 4 loaves you have to give the Kohenim, is learned from trumas maser, which is the truma you separate from the maser, right? Now, according to Yehuda, we should learn about the place where truma applies. So let's say, if you're going to start, Kamada Tema, just like you're telling me, Ein Trumas Maser Bamidbar, look, it didn't apply Trumas Maser when they were in the desert. There was no Maestros there, only when they got to the land. So Derech Maseh, Laitei Trumas Taida Bamidbar. There should not be the Trumas Taida either in the Midbar. Now they brought Karbon Taida properly, like other Karbonas. So you should suggest that the idea of separating 4 loaves should not apply in the Midbar. Rabbi Sai. This is another example where I've said to you before, and I'll say it again. Yerushalmi often compares an idea we say there, we'll apply it to here and say the same idea. So we were talking about learning Neter Revoi from Masa Sheni. So Yerushalmi says, well, if you do that, let's learn Trumas Taida from Trumas Maser. Yeah? I mean, why the 4 loaves out of the 40 from Trumas Maser, which is Truma you separate out of grain, why we should, because they're called Truma. That's what the Yerushalmi's done. You see that? That's what the Yerushalmi's done. They're called Truma. Right, the same idea should apply. That's typical Yerushalmi for you. So what's the answer? Why don't you say, therefore, that Trumas Maser, so there should be no Trumas Taida in the Midbar? Rabbi Yossi says, they didn't learn all the din of Truma from there. They're not comparing it all the way. It's just about the shir. We're not talking about other dinim. The main dinim are mentioned in the Torah. We don't need to mention Trumas Maser. We're mentioning the shiur I suppose Neter Avoy is not really explained in the Torah, so we had to learn it from Masechet, so he wants to compare it in everything to Masechet. But Trumas Torah, we know what it is, it's 4 loaves. And that's all we're learning, the idea of 4 loaves. It's a 10th, right? Trumas Maser is a 10th of the Maser, right? Tani, we learned on Tosefta, Rav Yehuda, Rav Lazar, Rav Shimon Omer. He says, "Loim is Chayvu Yisab Neter Avoy." When did Neter Avoy come about? Remember, Neter Avoy is just according to those who say it applies to other trees as well. Yeah, Keren Avoy and Neter Avoy are interchangeable, but Keren Avoy is a vineyard, and other Rishonim hold Neter Avoy, which is other trees as well. So Loim is Chayvu Yisab Neter Avoy Ela La'ach Abayis Rishon, after 14 years of coming into the land, which is Sheva Shekivshu, 7 years of conquering, with Sheva Shechilku, and 7 years of dividing up, right, between the Shotim. Okay? Rav Chisda said, Asher Rabbi Yehuda, Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, the view of Rabbi Yehuda was said, was Geshitas Rabbi Yehuda Avui. It's like Rabbi Yehuda, his father. And the way Rabbi Bibi explained it. Kamad Rabbi Yehuda Amar, just like Rabbi Yehuda said, Lamdu Ned Haravai Era B'Masechet. So we're doing another one now. Right. We learned Ravai from Masechet. Fine. But Kamada Tema, just like we say, Ein Masechet B'Surya, Masechet doesn't apply in Surya. Dichmase will also say a Netar Ravai b'Surya. So Netar Ravai should also not apply in Surya. So far, so good. Kain Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Amar. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda said, and he wants to say Rabbi Yosef Yehuda said the same idea. Let's see what he said. Lai lamda Netar Ravai ala Masechet. Right, Ravai is learnt from Masechet. Fair enough. Therefore, Kamada Tema ein Masechet ela la'ach abayis reishana. But Masechet only applies after 14 years. So therefore, we say the same thing. So also, Netar Avoy only applies after 14 years. So here what we said, just like we want to compare this to Masechet. Masechet doesn't apply in Surya, this one doesn't apply in Surya. Masechet doesn't apply till after 14 years. So therefore Netar Avoy should also only apply after 14 years. But our Rabbi Yossi says they're not necessarily saying the same thing, the father and the son here. No. He, B'Shitas B'nai, it could be Rabbi Yehuda's din is like his son Rabbi Yossi's din, because one of these dinim is more extra than the other one. One is a primary din and one is like an extra din. He says the idea of an exemption in Surya for types of produce, that's a secondary din. And Lamda Me'aba Esrei Shana, it's learned from the fact of the 14-year exemption. Just like 14-year exemption, so Surya is an exemption. But Surya is learnt from the 14-year exemption. You see? That's what he wants to say. The din of Rabbi Yehuda, we could learn it from Rabbi Yossi's din. There was no Ravai 14 years, so there's no din in Surya. But you can't say the other way around. Ein abayis reishana lamda b'Surya. The din of Rabbi Yossi that you didn't have in the 14 years, you can't learn that from Rabbi Yehuda's din that it didn't apply in Surya. Even if there's nothing in Surya, it might still apply in the first 14 years. So one is much more an obligation, you'd think. Right? And it's a bigger chiddush to say that there was nothing for 14 years. Whereas Surya, to say it didn't apply in Surya, well, okay, big deal. It's only a private conquest, whatever it is. The Gemara brings the brisa now. It explains the view of Rabbi Yehuda. Kesiv, it says, Vashana Chamishis, and in the 5th year, after Arla, after Netar Avoy, in the 5th year, Tachlu es Perioi, you can now have the fruit. Rabbi Yosef Glili Omer, he said the word Lahaisif Lachem, Hareah Kil Moisif Peres Chamishis HaPeres Hareis, you can increase the 5th year produce onto the 4th to equate them and say, Ma Peres Chamishis Lebalim, the 5th year goes to the owners, it's Chulin, so Peres Revis Lebalim. According to this opinion, even the stuff in the 4th year goes to you. You can be Mekadesh a woman with it, right? And the Kedushin will be Chal, and it's your money. It's considered your money according to this view who we just quoted, right? It's not Mom and Gavaya. He's saying Kamravai is your money. This is another brisa which is explaining Rabbi Yehuda that calls it your money. Now, Rabbi Yosef Glili will fit in like this. Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yasef, Shem, Rabbi Yochanan, answered Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Yehuda. This opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, this brisa, Rabbi Yosef Glili fits in. Kamad Rabbi Yehuda, Isa, Isa, Kenachasab. Rabbi Yehuda treats it as your money, right? He says it's yours. You can be Mekadesh a woman with it. Kain Rabbi Yosef Glili, Isa, Isa, Kenachasab. He also makes it your Nachasim. He also treats it as being yours. Okay? According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's yours, properly yours. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yehuda Abai Kurav Zira. Rabbi Yehuda asked in front of Zira. Kedivrei Mishu Isa Isa Genachasa. Now, according to the one who says it's yours, so that's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Mahu. Now, wait a minute. How much is it yours? That produce, Ravoi, right? It's yours. Thank you very much. Sheichai b'maisrus. Do you have to take meiser on that? Has it got some sanctity at all? Or is it completely yours and you have to take meiser on it? Amalei says, Kaidam Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Dam Ravavim Shem Shur ben Levi. He said, Loi Saif Dava Halacha Zu. Not just this halacha you got a doubt. And a kol halacha shirafefes bebased. Any halacha you're not sure, they're wavering. They not yedem atzibo. You don't know what to do. Say a ma atzibo noeg. Go and see what the community does, and noeg and follow them. Right? Since the tzibur obviously do things was right. But the fact is, we see that the community do not separate maestros from Peres Ravoi. So it's obviously potter for maestros. But Amar Rabbana said, wait a minute. Ilu Naima, if you would say that his question was according to Beis Shammai, fair enough. I don't care what people do. It's like Beis Shammai is wrong. People don't follow Beis Shammai. If he was going on the din of Beis Shammai, it's not relevant to us. Because yes, Sibuk Beis Shammai, people follow Beis Shammai, definitely not. Allah is like Beis Hillel. There's no raya from people doing something if it's the view of Beis Shammai. And the same thing here. The doubt of Rav Yehuda is according to the fact that Ravoi is considered Mammon Baalim, which is based on Beis Shammai in our Mishnah. But we don't take on like that. According to Beis Hillel, Ravoi is heavenly. It's Mammon Gavoya. It's not yours. So the question, do you take Meiser on it? But it's not yours. So the dinner of Yeshua ben Levi is not really relevant here. You're telling me, oh, people don't take. Yeah, but that's Beis Shammai who said it's yours, or whatever. We don't look at Beis Shammai, we're looking at Beis Hillel. Rav Avin said, Klum lamdu neter avoy adam Masechet. Back to what we said before. We've learned neter avoy from Masechet. Kamada tema ein Masechet chai b'maisrus. If there's no maisrus from Masechet, you don't have to separate masa. Although it's your money, dichvasa ein neter avoy chai b'maisrus. The same thing here. You don't have to separate maisrus from neter avoy, even though it's your money. Okay, you don't have to do it. It's your money. You don't have to separate any maisrus. Now. So what is it here? We're saying, do you have to separate maestros here? Okay. Now usually, what's the order usually? First you separate truma, yes? And then you would separate, Rabbi said, what comes after truma? Any offers? Maser Rishon for the Levi. And then Maser Sheni is later on in the process. So why does the Gemara say, Maser Sheni is not chayav b'maisrus? I mean, there's no. How are you going to take maisrus out of Maser Sheni? Maisrus has already been given before you get to the Maser Sheni stage. So some want to say it's talking about a case where you separated Maser Sheni in the wrong order. You first were mafresh Maser Sheni b'shibalim before you separated truma and Maser Rishon, and in that situation you did not separate from the Maser Sheni truma and Maser Rishon. And nevertheless, you are still exempt from separating them from Maser Sheni. He says that's a dochuk. I mean, why should we learn Neter Avoy from Maser Sheni? It was done with an Aveira. Okay, if you look in the Hebrew Art Scroll, there's a massive big paragraph talking about it. But we'll move on. Where are we now? Rabbi Bo, yeah? B'Shem Ruchia? Yeah, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Now, a similar din about Maser Sheni. Let's see. Isas Maser Sheni b'Yerushalmi. A Maser Sheni dough in Yerushalmi, Kurabmeya, according to Rabmeya, who holds its Mammon Gavaya, it's not really your money at all, but this dough is Petura min Chala. You do not have to separate Chala and give to the Cohen, because it's only on your dough. And according to Rabmeya, this Maser Sheni is Mammon Gavaya, it's not yours. But according to Yehuda, there's Mammon Baalim, then it's your dough, and you will be Chaim in Chala. Rabbi Yehuda said, that's the dough that was made in Yerushalmi. So the question, is it Chaim Chala, Potzman Chala, is it your dough, is it Mammon Baalim or not? Avol Bigvulin, if it was made outside Yerushalmi, there's no argument. Rabbi Yehuda agrees you're potter from Chala, because you can't eat it. You can't eat the Chala. You can't eat this Maser Sheni dough outside Yerushalmi. So therefore it's Mammon Baalim, it's Mammon Gavoya. So therefore there's no chiyuv to separate Chala from it. Rabbi Baba Cohen, Rabbi Yotza, Kedivrei Mishu Mechayev B'Peret. Okay. According to the one who says Peres Ravoi does have the din of Peret, which is what Beis Shammai said in our Mishnah. Mahu, what's the din with a dough which has Kedushas Revoi, let's say you redeemed Revoi fruit, you used the money and you bought grain and you made a dough. Now, are we going to tell me, Shetehei Chayeves B'Chala? Do you have to separate Chala from the dough that you bought with Masechet, what is it again? With Peres Revoi, right? Peret. So yeah, a dough which was bought with the money of Kedushas Revoi. Okay, and you use the money and you bought a dough. Is it Chayav with Chala or not? Okay, he says here, if Beis Shammai held, Beis Shammai say Peret applies, right? The small grapes. Now, if they hold is Mom and Balim, therefore Chala should be Chayav. Or maybe they say, no, it's Mom and Gavaya, but Peret and Oilos you're Chayav because there's some riboy for it. So it's not miyuchad a riboy for Chala. So maybe Beis Shammai say you're potter from Chala. So on the one hand, Peret and Oilos you're Chayav. But does that mean other things as well? Are you Chayav Chala as well? So if you have Peres Revoi and you convert it into a Chala, into a dough, do you have to separate the Chala for the Cohen or not? So that's the question. Amalek, he answered back, Lai Rabbi Yehuda, is this not the dinner of Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda says it's Mom and Balim, it's considered your money and your Chayav Chala. The Savrina Meima, and the whole sugi you wanted to say, Kol Haloshon, all these halachas, Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda Paskin the Rabbi, we all were saying all the time, Beis Shammai, that's all very well. Oh yes, it's Mom and Balim, but that's Beis Shammai. We're not interested in Beis Shammai. Therefore, this din is Rabbi Yehuda, that Ravoi is considered Mom and Balim, and your Chayav Chala, whatever it is, but that is the view of Beis Shammai, but we're interested in the view of Beis Hillel. And Beis Hillel, it's Mom and Gavaya, and therefore you won't be Chayav Chala on Mom and Gavaya. Okay. So what have we got? We said Eilalos are these clusters that are not developed. So the question is, what happened if the whole vineyard is just clusters not developed? The whole vineyard. What are you going to do? Kerem Shekula Eilalos. There's nothing. There's no proper clusters there. Rabbi Lezer says, you know what? You keep the lot. The balabais. Keep the lot. Don't have to give any. Rabbi Kiva, because there's nothing. You only give the poor when they get their bit. Here there is no their bit. The whole thing is rubbish. So you keep the lot. Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Kiva says you give away the lot. When you're cutting your vineyard, don't leave, don't take the clusters, the underdeveloped clusters. So you have to leave them for the poor. But that is kitivsa when you're cutting something for yourselves. It ain't botzer, but if there's nothing for yourself, where are you going to get these underdeveloped ones? If they're underdeveloped, the whole thing, keep the lot. We say no. It doesn't say it doesn't say from your vineyard, part of your vineyard. No, the whole thing's underdeveloped. You have to give the lot. Why quote the other pasuk? He says, there's another din it's telling me that the poor do not have a right to take the underdeveloped clusters before you have started your cutting. Before you start cutting, they can't get their bit. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. That's what these psukim are telling me. So we've got Machlekes. Who said what? Rabbi Lezer said if it's all underdeveloped, you keep the lot. Rabbi Kiva says no, you still have to give everything away to the poor, and they have their psukim. Now, according to Rabbi Lezer, by giving it, there'll be nothing left for the balabais. So you take it all for yourself. Now, what about the din of Peret? Peret, the single grapes. Similarly, with Peret, which cools at the time of the cutting, if there's no general harvest for you, for the owner, because the whole thing is falling, the whole thing became Peret, ain Peret. The poor get nothing. So according to Belezer, not just the fact the clusters are full of, to be Chayav Olos, there's no Chayav Olos unless there is a Botzeh, B'tzad HaBotzeh. You've got to have your cutting, you have a harvest, next to a harvest at the same time for the poor, whatever it is. But also, in Harav Chaya, let's say all your stuff was eaten by animals. As soon as you cut it, it's all eaten by animals, all your stuff. There's no din of the Olos for the poor. Yeah, they get what they get when you get what you get. But if all your stuff is eaten away, according to Rameir, once it's all eaten away, the animals ate the lot. They don't get. Now, what is Botzeh, which is Chayav Olos, according to Belezer? But how much clusters is considered a harvest? And that is Botzeh, which is obligating Olos for the poor. To Beis Shilo Amri, they said Shlosh Eshkolos, 3 clusters, Shein Osim Revir, which make a revius of wine. Less than 3 clusters, or less than a reverse, it doesn't apply. But Rabbi Akiva, Mekayim Trei Kohen, now Rabbi Akiva fitted his pshat. He said, if you get nothing, they get everything. And he fitted it in with the psukim. What's Rabbi Lezer do with this pasuk? Rabbi Akiva brought it as support to his view. He says, Shalai time I don't say Hayil, ve'ein lani and ba'ilaz kodem lebatzeh. Since we don't say, look, the poor have no right to have the oilers before you start cutting. You think, right, okay, they can't come before you. Fair enough. Therefore, you might think, Yiska behen balabais. But if they can't take it before you, maybe you take it. Maybe you can acquire it before you start cutting. You see what the logic is there? Because they can't come before you, maybe you get it all. That's why the pasuk says, no, it doesn't mention a cutting. Even before the cutting, you can't take it. You definitely can't take it. Now, this Lashon here, he's saying you might have thought you can take it before they take it. Now, where's that coming from? You might take it before they take it. Why would I think that? So then, take away the whole mitzvah then. What, you're going to take it before they get there? So how's that working? So, so talk about it. Some say it's Pasha Misfar. Of course you can't take Oilulus. I don't need a source for that. Rabbi Lezer needs to bring a source from a pasuk, because Rabbi Lezer holds, look, if there's no cutting for you, you don't have to give Oilulus. Since therefore it depends on your cutting, you might have thought before you start cutting, you can take the Oilulus for yourself. According to Rabbi Lezer. Therefore Rabbi Lezer has a drasha. No, you can't do it. Rabbi Akiva holds, it doesn't depend on what you cut for yourself. Even if the whole thing is Oilulus, you have to give it all away. So it's Pasha that you can't take before you cut. Of course you can't take what's there. I don't need a pasuk to tell you that. That's what Rav Moshe Feinstein said. So maybe according to Rabbi Lezer, you might have thought, since he says, look, if there's nothing, you get to keep it. Okay, we have a pasuk telling you don't take it before you start cutting. You understand? But according to Rabbi Akiva, you give it away to the poor. Of course you can't take it beforehand. I don't need a pasuk for that. Okay, where are we? Halacha Zayin. Rabbi Sai, nearly there, Rabbi Sai, yeah. Only 7 black left. Magdish as cowboy. How are we doing? Ooh, it's 2 minutes to 7. Yeah, let's do the Mishnah. Magdish as cowboy. Ad shaloi noid oilos. Right. You make everything hekdesh before you notice the oilos now. You don't know. You can't tell if there's going to be underdeveloped clusters, and you've made everything hekdesh. Ein oilos anim. They don't go to the poor. Mishanoidolas, if you knew about these underdeveloped clusters first, and then you make a hekdesh, the poor people get them. Rabbi Yossi says, Yidnuscha gedulin, you should, you know what, the poor, anything grows from now on, the poor should give a reward, give a payment for anything that grows in hekdesh status. Le hekdesh. You follow? So hekdesh acquired it at this time. Anything that grows from now, which is still connected to that, the poor should pay for any new growths that they get. Now, what is the situation of shikha with a vine, where you can't go back and take it? But oris, now if it's like the vines which are high up on woods, on trellises, Carl, if ever where you go past it and you forgot to take it, and you remembered in a place, you can't go back and take it now, then that's shikha. You've gone past it, you can't reach it. But if you can still reach out, then it's still considered you can go back and take it. Over roiglios, now roiglios are the vines that are on the ground for people to walk on at other people's feet. There the dinner shikha is mishiyava mimena, when you've gone past it. Even though you can reach out, once you've gone past it, that's it. Tamon Tanina, we've learned in the Mishnah Pesachim. The men of Yerichai, Hamatirian Megimziais Shel Hekdesh. Now, there were branches of these carob trees where their fathers earlier on had made them Hekdesh. And the Chachamim objected. People used to use these growths from these trees. Now, why did they make them Hekdesh? Let's see. Do you not agree? These things grow from Hekdesh. Your fathers, your ancestors made all this stuff Hekdesh. And Sheina Surin, you shouldn't get benefit. And then these people were taking the branches. Why? When they made it holy, it was the big stumps they made holy, because people were stealing them. So they made the stumps holy. People of might, would take them with power, and therefore in order to guard against that, they made them holy. But they didn't have intention to be makdish the branches, So the branches were permitted to get benefit. That's what the men of Yerichai said. That it was never intended that everything should be holy, just the stumps. Mara Bonasar, but what did the Chachamim object? Shcheres and Peros, he says the beams and the fruit, Higdishu, they made everything holy, the branches as well. Now that might be one reason. Or maybe, Afilu Tema, if you're going to tell me Cheres Higdishu, they made the stumps holy, but Peros Lightish were not the fruit. But the Chachamim was still worried. Maybe Tzricha Larbon, maybe they had a question about it. Hamagdis De'ilam, when you make a field holy, Ma'ash Yishaylam Begidulen, can you decide, a tree field, you make it holy, can you leave the growth that's going to grow later for yourself? Or do we say, look, they're coming from Hekdesh. Hekdesh is Chal, right? You can't leave it. So if you're going to say Hekdesh is Chal on growths of its own accord, maybe according to the Chachamim, the men only made the entry Richai, that maybe the branches, maybe they never made it holy, but they still forbade it because there's Din Hekdesh on it. So that was the question, is there Din Hekdesh on these growths that come later on or not? All right. So the one just gives one answer. Where are we up to? We'll do two more lines. Nishme'ina min Hada. We learned the from our Mishnah. Now the Tanna Kama said, if you made your vineyard holy, Mishnah you already know about the Olodos out there, and you made it holy. Olodos La'anim, they go to the poor. They're going to carry on growing in the Hekdesh field. The Aniyim don't have to give payment to Hekdesh. And the reason is because you had das, when you made it holy, you're going to leave anything that grows from Olodos is going to be going to the poor. And even though it grows from Hekdesh, it's not holy. You're going to leave wherever that grows. You see that you're allowed to leave the growths and leave it for the poor. But then the Gemara says, Shani, no, that's different. You can't make something Hekdesh if it's not yours. If the Aniyim already have a right, so all these Olodos, as far as this is concerned, it's not your field anymore. They already have a right to the Olodos. And if that's the case, you can't remove their schus by making it Hekdesh. You can't remove their right. It's theirs already. You can't make it Hekdesh and remove that. Okay. I think we will stop here.